In the previous lecture, we saw how to make use of a drop zone. Now, as that feature is not compatible across all the browsers, what we'll be discussing in this one is how to not make use of drop zone and still be able to drop an image or an object. So here, I'll be removing this drop zone from the div with the ID drop zone, and then in my JavaScript, I'll be adding this source ID, and I'll be removing this DND type. Here I'll be adding one more parameter. Let's treat it as an array. So that will be the collection of objects that can be dragged. For instance, I have this image HTML over here. So HTML5 is the value that I will be assigning to it for now. Next, we have our detect drag and drop function, which remains as is, and then we have our handle drag start, and then we have our init function, and everything remains as is over here as well. What we need to change is inside handle drag start. So here in handle drag start, I'll be actually making use of the source ID variable that I've defined, and I'll be assigning the ID of this object which is being dragged. For instance, here the ID will be image HTML, and that will be stored inside this variable source ID. Once that is stored in this source ID variable, I can simply go ahead over here and say drag started with a space, and then access the same using the payloads variable. So payloads, and then I'll pass the source ID to it as parameter. Now the source ID is actually the key over here. So when I will be passing img_html, it will be returning HTML5. Now that is all that we need to do in drag start. Next we have drag over. Now drag over remains unchanged, and finally we have handle drop. Now handle drop will display the message, and the message will be exactly like we have over here, payloads source of ID. So now let's save this and execute it, and here we have the HTML image and the drop zone. So let's start doing, you can see that drag started HTML5, and when I'll be dropping it over here, it will say receive drop data HTML5. So whatever current image we are dragging, we are just storing its ID in a variable and then passing that variable's ID as an index value to the array that we have created, and then using that index value we are accessing the text associated and finally displaying it over here. Now in the next lecture, we'll see how we can make use of the whole thing that we have learned till now, that is drag and drop, and we'll be creating one example where we'll be exploring all these things one more time.